From The Australian, here's what's on the front. I'm Kristen Amiet. It's Monday, June 16, 2025. Senators want Amazon to be banned from winning lucrative contracts for government work. It comes as Prime Minister Anthony Albanese toured Amazon's headquarters in Seattle, prompting criticism of his government's links to the tech giant. The PM is expected to meet with Donald Trump on the sidelines of the G7 summit in Canada this week. On the agenda is the future of the AUKUS military pact, as the Trump administration throws defence and trade ties into doubt. Those stories are live right now at theaustralian.com.au. Civilian casualties, crumbling buildings, and rockets raining down on Israel and Iran. Today, the new Middle East war over Iran's nuclear ambitions, why Israel is striking now, and what happens next.
It was so surreal. You know, you can hear noises outside, you're not sure what they are. It was like nothing I've ever experienced, but it was something that people who live in Israel have experienced a lot.
This is Paige Taylor, The Australian's correspondent in Jerusalem.
The bomb shelter I went to on Friday morning was on the same level of the hotel I'm staying at. What I hadn't realised at the time is that everywhere in Israel, building codes for more than 30 years have required a bomb shelter on every level, which says a lot about the conflicts that have been going on in Israel for a very long time. But I think some of the people who've been living in Israel for a long time are quite accustomed to what is a full-scale alert and what is a standby alert. So it wasn't until the second alarm rang that Israelis and other people who live in the region came into that bomb shelter with me. I'd been in there for quite some time wondering if I was in the right place, actually.
Paige isn't usually a war reporter. She's The Australian's Indigenous Affairs correspondent and was in Israel to report on a delegation of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people led by former Olympian and former Labor Senator Nova Peris.
She was showing the delegates the parts of Israel that she had visited last year, and she had been very moved by that trip and wanted others to see what she saw.
The Jewish people have an unbroken history to this land they call Israel. The epitome of decolonisation is the Jewish people.
Paige is an extremely experienced reporter and she's not fazed by much, so it's from this modest 3x4 metre space that she's pivoted to reporting on a major escalation in tensions between Israel and Iran. It began on Friday when Israel launched Operation Rising Lion, a coordinated attack on more than 100 Iranian military and nuclear sites. The Israeli Defence Force said in a statement that the airstrikes on Iran's primary nuclear site, the Natanz facility on the Central Plateau, had been especially effective despite its protective underground construction. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said the operation was designed to curtail Tehran's nuclear ambitions.
For decades, the tyrants of Tehran have brazenly, openly called for Israel's destruction. They've backed up their genocidal rhetoric with a program to develop nuclear weapons. This is a clear and present danger to Israel's very survival.
Iran has always maintained its nuclear program has nothing to do with making atomic bombs. It says it's designed to provide energy to its 90 million citizens. But just a day earlier, on Thursday, the board of the International Atomic Energy Agency censured Iran for stonewalling its inspectors. And Benjamin Netanyahu says Israeli intelligence suggests Iran has enriched enough uranium to produce 9 atomic bombs.
In recent months, Iran has taken steps that it has never taken before. Steps to weaponize this enriched uranium. And if not stopped, Iran could produce a nuclear weapon in a very short time.
Within the day, Iran retaliated, motivated, state media said, by the deaths of civilians in the strikes.
Well, Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei vowed a harsh punishment in retaliation for the attack, saying Israel has brought a bitter and painful fate upon itself and it will certainly face it.
Explosions were reported over Israel's capital, Tel Aviv, and Jerusalem. When I spoke to Paige on Sunday afternoon Sydney time, the impact was already being felt.
People in Israel were woken up at 3 a.m. Friday local time to alerts from the Israeli government that they had attacked Iran's nuclear facilities and that people should be on high alert. And so that was the beginning. The number of missiles fired back has been somewhere around 200, and Israel has let some of those hit the ground because they were going to unpopulated areas. 3 people are dead that we know of. There's dozens injured, and there's quite a few people unaccounted for that I think the death toll is going to rise.
Iran's leadership also issued a warning to the United States, United Kingdom and France not to help Israel in its assault, or else it would target their military bases in the region. But with Israel's infamous Iron Dome defence system under pressure, the US has stepped in to shoot down the missiles raining down from the east. Caught in the middle, Iraq has asked its ally, Iran, not to target its strategic partner, the US. The reprisal hasn't deterred Israel.
This operation will continue for as many days as it takes to remove this threat.
We're not hearing any back down in the rhetoric from the IDF. We're also not entirely sure whether their job is complete in Iran. In fact, they're talking about hitting more targets in Tehran. Their focus is to completely disable Iran's nuclear capabilities.
The Australian's foreign editor Greg Sheridan says this is a pivotal moment in the Middle East conflict.
I think it's very uncertain exactly how it's going to go, but Israel has widened its targets now to include Iran's energy infrastructure, and it says its political leadership could be targeted as well. So Iran will strike back in every way that it can. So Israel is taking more hits on its homeland than it's taken since the October 7 terror atrocities. I don't know whether Iran will attack Americans in the Middle East. If they strike Americans in the Middle East, they are likely to get a very, very tough response from the Americans. So far, the Iranian proxies have been pretty quiet. Hezbollah hasn't had much to say. There's not much sign of activity from the militias in Syria or Iraq. Israel has been striking the Houthis again in Yemen as well. But it's just impossible to know how long Israel's target list is and whether Iran has any other options for retaliation that we don't know about, and whether other countries will get involved. I mean, one thing is that Iran is strongly supported by China, Russia and North Korea, and they all have nuclear weapons. So it may well be that they help Iran reconstitute its nuclear weapons program reasonably quickly, even if the Israelis do more or less destroy most of the Iranian capability. But we are drenched in uncertainty and danger at the moment.
Coming up is a bigger ambition driving Israel's fight against Iran. While I've got you, I wanted to let you know the monumental challenges facing Australia's Defence Force will be examined at the Defending Australia Summit in Canberra today. You can tune in to a live stream at theaustralian.com.au from midday to hear our experts and key defence figures speak on everything from AUKUS to the future of the Indo-Pacific. And there's more of today's episode after this. In the aftermath of Israel's Operation Rising Lion, Iranian state media reported the head of its Revolutionary Guards, Major General Hossein Salami, had been killed in a strike on the capital, Tehran. It points to a greater Israeli ambition, toppling the brutal regime that seeks its destruction. Iran is a backer of the militant groups Hezbollah, who operate largely in Lebanon, Hamas in Gaza, and the Houthi rebels in Yemen. all have attacked Israel since October 7, 2023, when Hamas militants massacred men, women and children living in southern Israel and took 250 more people hostage. Israeli PM Benjamin Netanyahu said it was Israel's actions against Hezbollah that brought about the end of the Assad regime in Syria, and a new government was installed in Lebanon. And on Friday, he appealed directly to the Iranian people.
I believe that the day of your liberation is near. And when that happens, the great friendship between our two ancient peoples will flourish once again.
Here's Greg Sheridan.
I think Israel is in favour of regime change, all right. There's no doubt about that. But this is not a military attack designed through military means to effect regime change. The Israelis don't have a proxy force, which they're backing within Iran. But the Israelis for years, and the Americans too, have been appealing to the Iranian people to try to get rid of their despotic regime. Now, as far as we can tell, the Iranian people hate their despotic regime. Every year or two, there is a wave of mass protests in Iran. Protesters are routinely arrested and killed by the Iranian authorities, in some cases for something as trivial as not wearing the scarf with sufficient modesty. It's been remarkably easy for Israeli intelligence to penetrate Iran, both Iranian society, Iranian government, Iranian military, and even perhaps the Iranian intelligence services. Now, a lot of analysts think that itself is a sign that there are a lot of people inside Iran who don't believe in the regime, who are very unhappy with the economic misery and the repression and the human rights abuses and everything else that the Iranian regime has foisted on the Iranian people. However, dictatorships can last a long time. They're very strong until they're not. On the other hand, some of them go on and on and on. I've been reporting on North Korea one way and another for more than 40 years, and at every moment of that 40 years, there's been an analyst somewhere saying the North Koreans are about to collapse, but here they still are. On the other hand, then you have something like the giant edifice of the Soviet Union. In the 1980s, Australian intelligence was saying it's going to be a superpower forevermore. And a minute later, the fall of the Berlin Wall, the collapse of Soviet communism. So I think change in Iran is possible, but it's very hard to predict whether it will happen. But just at the technical level, this performance in Iran is quite remarkable. And it would look as though there are a lot of people in Iran who are willing to work against the regime, maybe for money, maybe for promise of escape, or maybe from a desire to get rid of the Iranian regime, which oppresses all Iranians.
This is a story that has been building since 1979, when Iran made it quite clear that their focus was to destroy Israel, and that was not ever going to be something that Israel could tolerate. So while I've been here, I've been listening to people who talk about the fact that this is a country that wants peace, but is surrounded by terrorist organisations that wish it to be destroyed.
Greg Sheridan is the Australian's foreign editor, and Paige Taylor is our Indigenous Affairs correspondent. For all the latest from our reporters on the ground in Israel, and to view the Defending Australia Summit live stream, visit theaustralian.com.au.